In this lecture, you will learn how to send a post request to the server from our Angular application. Now, we usually send a post request to the server when we want to add some new data in the database. Let's learn how we can do that in Angular. Here, I have created a new Angular project called Angular HTTP Request. I will share the link of this project in the description. Here, let's go to source folder and let's expand this app folder. And let's open app-component.html file. And here you will notice that I have already added some HTML. And this is how the web page looks. So in this web page, we have a form and we have a table. Using this form, we will create new products. And in this table, we will display all the products. Now, currently, this form is a simple HTML form. So if I go back to VS Code, you will notice that this form is a simple HTML form. Now, what we are going to do is we are going to convert it into a template driven form. And to do that, on each of these input elements, the first thing which we need to do is we need to specify the name attribute. So here, for the first input element, let's call it maybe P name. Okay, so product name. In the same way, let's specify a name for this description. So I will simply call it description or DSC. And in the same way, here also on this input element, let's provide a name and let's call it price. So this is the first thing. Then another thing is on each of these input elements, we also need to use ng model. So I will copy this from here and I will add it on other input elements as well. And to use this ng model, we also need to specify it inside this imports array. So here we need to specify forms module. And to use this forms module, we need to import it from angular/forms. All right. Now, what I'm also going to do is on this form element, I'm going to specify a local reference variable and I'm going to call it maybe products form. And to this, I want to assign ng form. Now, we have already learned what this ng form is in our previous lectures. All right. Now, on this form, I'm also going to bind the ng submit event. And to this ng submit event, I'm going to assign a method and let's call this method on product create. Okay, so whenever this submit button will be clicked, this add product button, this ng submit event will be raised. And when that event is raised, we want to execute this method. And to this method, we want to pass the ng form object. And we are storing that ng form object inside this products form variable, right? So let's pass it here. Now, this ng form object is going to have a value property. And that value property is an object. And in that object, we will have these controls as its properties, right? So in that value object, we will have a property called pname, this description, and this price. Okay, so here we basically want to pass that value object to this on product create method. Now let's go ahead and let's create this method in the app component class. So here inside this class, I'm going to create this method. And we know that for this method, we are going to receive an argument. Let's call that products. Okay, so here we are specifying a parameter called products. And this products is going to be an object. So to this products parameter, we are assigning the value object of the ng form object, right? So that object is going to have a pname property of type string. It is also going to have a description property of type string, and it is also going to have a price property, and it is also going to be of type string. So these properties are nothing but the names which we have specified for these input elements. So we know that in the value property of ng form object, a property with the name of that input element will be created, and the value which we enter in that input element, that value will be assigned to that property. Right? We have already learned this. All right, now let's go back to our app component class. And inside this method, just for testing, let's go ahead and let's log this product, the value which we are receiving for this products parameter. Let's save the changes. Let's go to the web page. Here, let's open developer console. Let's clear everything. Let's enter some value in these fields. And let's click on this add product button. And when I click on this add product button, you will notice that an object has been logged here. And this object has this description property, this pname property, and this price property. And these properties are assigned with the values which we have entered in these fields. Now here, we don't simply want to log the values which the user has entered in these fields. Instead, we want to send a post request to the server, and with that post request, we want to send these data. And using these data, we want to create a new product in the database. So in the last lecture, we created this database. In this database, we want to save these products. For that, we need to make a post request. Now in Angular, no matter which type of HTTP request you are making, the first thing which you need to do is, in the app module, you need to specify the HTTP client module. And to use this HTTP client module, we also need to import it from @angular/common/http. Okay, so this is the first step. Then we need to inject an instance of HTTP client in the app component class, because here only we want to use the HTTP methods. For that, let's go ahead and let's create a constructor. Inside this constructor, let's go ahead and create a private parameter. Let's call it HTTP, and it is going to be of type HTTP client. And to use this HTTP client, we also need to import it from angular/common/http. And remember this HTTP client is different from this HTTP client module. So here it is HTTP client module, and here it is simply HTTP client. Okay, so here in this class, we are injecting an instance of HTTP client, and we are storing it inside this HTTP parameter. Now, since we have used this private keyword in front of this parameter, behind the scenes, a private property with this name HTTP will be created, and we can access that property using this keyword. So inside this method, let's use this dot HTTP dot, and on this HTTP, we have different types of methods like delete, get, patch, post, etc. So to make a post request to the server, we can use this post method. Now this post method takes several parameters, and the two required parameters are the URL and the body which we want to send with the post request. For the URL, in the last lecture, we created this database, right? And here we get this URL. So for the URL, we are going to copy this URL and we are going to use it. So let's copy it from here. And here, let's use single quotes, and inside that, let's paste the URL. And after this URL, we are also going to specify some value. So what I'm going to specify is products.json. What this will do is, in the database, it will create a folder called products, and inside that folder, all our products will be stored. Here, you can provide any name, and with that name in the database, a folder will be created. Now here, since I want to save the list of products, that's why I have called it products. All right, then the second required parameter of this post method is the body, and here we want to send this products, the data which we have inside this products object. Now this object will be automatically converted to the JSON object by this post method. That's because we cannot send a JavaScript object in the body. we can only send the JSON object, the JSON data. So that's why this post method will convert this object, this JavaScript object, into a JSON data, and then it will be sent with the request. All right, with this, let's save the changes. Let's go to the web page. Let's go to our app, and here, let's see if the request is getting sent or not. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the network tab. Let's clear everything from here. Let's enter some value. Okay, and let's click on this add product. And you will notice that there is no request which you see here which has been sent. So in this network tab, we are not seeing any request. That's because this post method returns an observable. So here you can see it returns an observable. And in the observables lecture, we learned that an observable will emit the data. It will send the data only if there is a subscriber to that data. If there is no subscriber, then the observable will not emit the data, right? So here, the observable which this post method will return, it does not have any subscriber. And since it does not have any subscriber, this request will not be sent. And we will not get any response. If there is someone who will use the response, in that case only the request will be sent and we will get the response. So here what we need to do is we also need to subscribe to the observable which this post method will return. So let's move to next line, and here on this post method, let's also call subscribe. And to this subscribe method, let's pass a callback function. And this callback function is going to receive the data which this post method will return. So basically it is going to return us the response. Let's call it res. Okay, so here we are sending a request, and for that request we will get a response, and that response we will receive inside this parameter. Now let's go ahead and let's simply log that response. Okay, with this, let's save the changes. Let's go to the web page. Let's clear everything. Okay, and now let's go ahead and let's send a post request. So when we click on this add product button, a post request will be sent. Let's see that. Let's click on this button, and here you will notice that there are two requests. Now, why do we have two requests here? Well, this is just a default behavior of browser. When we send a post request, the browser always sends two requests. So the first request here, if we go to the headers, this request is of type post. And if we check the second one, it is of type options. So this request was sent first, and then this request was sent. Now this request is of type options, and this is another HTTP verb. And this checks if the post request is allowed to be sent. And if it returns a success response like we are getting here, in that case, it will send the actual post request. And here, that post request has been sent. Now, if we go to the database, here you will notice that a folder called products has been created. In that folder, we have another folder with some, unique ID. And in that, a product with the description, name, and price has been created. So in this way, using HTTP post request, we created a product in this database. Let's go ahead and let's create one more product. So maybe laptop, let's say Lenovo laptop, and for price, let's say $13.99. Let's again click on this add product. Let's go to our database, and here you will notice that now we have two products. So this is how we can send a post request to a server from our Angular application using this post method. Now to this post method, we have passed two arguments. The first argument is the URL. Then the second argument is the body which we want to send with the post request. Then it also has some optional arguments, some optional parameters. So the third argument which this post method takes is the header. Using this parameter, we can set custom headers. Let's see how to do that. So for that, let's go ahead and let's create a variable here. Let's call it maybe headers. And to create a header, let's use HTTP headers class. To the constructor of this HTTP header, we can pass an object, and inside that we can specify our custom headers as a key value pair. So for example, let's say the key is my header, and let's say the value is maybe Procademy. Okay. Now we want to send this header with this post request. For that, here let's use a curly braces. Then let's say headers, and to this let's assign this headers. Let's save the changes. Let's go to the web page. Let's clear everything here. Let's add a new product, maybe TV, and let's add the price. Let's click on this add product. So this request is the actual post request, as you can see here. Now if we go to the headers of this request, so here we have the response headers, and here we have the request headers. And in the request header, you can see that here we have this header, my header, with this value Procademy. So in this way, we can also pass custom headers with the request by passing a third argument to this post method. Alright, so this is all from this lecture. If you have any questions, then feel free to ask it. Thank you for listening and have a great day.